Hello. Welcome to Reset, presented by Pond Global on Afrique Today. I am your host, Busi Matiko Anden, live from our New York office in New York. Of course, you know, Afrique Today is the #1 digital channel out of Washington, D.C. On Reset, we will be talking about ways in which we will be able to deal with the challenges our society is facing during these unprecedented times in history. Reset is focused on career change and transformation. The coronavirus pandemic has clearly brought the entire world into a state of hypervigilance. The majority of entrepreneurs and thought leaders and business leaders have been forced to reassess their lives, careers, and sometimes their purpose. Through Reset's candid conversations with these thought leaders and the our discussing of global issues, thought leaders of these global issues are forced to be re-engaged, inspired, and ready to lead again. You can watch us on 4 platforms, that is Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and of course, afriquetoday.com. Did you know that we're on Smart TV? Yes, we are. So today we have a special guest, but we're delayed a little bit due to technical difficulties. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome back. Today we have a special guest, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, who serves as the first ever Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. He will keynote today's topic, laser-focused collaborations for Africa. The case for the diaspora support post COVID-19 economy. This speech will be followed by a couple of questions from me, and later we will have a show with 3 global trade experts who will deliver remarks on the case for AFCFTA. Welcome, Your Excellency, Mr. Wamkele Mene. I believe there is a bit of a slight delay, but we will continue to hold off a little bit for His Excellency. Stay tuned. Hello everyone. Welcome back to Reset, and today we have a special guest who is His Excellency Wamkele Mene, who serves as the first ever Secretary General of the Africa Continental Trade Area Secretariat, AFCFTA. He will keynote today's topic, laser-focused collaboration, the case for the diaspora supports COVID-19 economy. His speech will be followed by questions from me and show the feature global trade experts. Welcome, Your Excellency Wamkele Mene. It's an honor to have you. How are you doing during this unprecedented times?
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm fine. I'm okay, and I hope you too and the viewers are doing fine. I look forward to the discussion this morning or the afternoon or evening, depending where you are. Thank you once again for inviting me.
It's truly an honor that this day has happened. I believe it's a historic day, and I mean, it would only make sense for me to highlight your background and your achievements before proceeding. His Excellency Wamkele Mene was elected by the 33rd Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of States and the Government of the African Union to the position of Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA Secretariat. Prior to being elected Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, he served as the Chief Director, Africa Economic Relations at the Department of Trade and Industry, South Africa. In this role, he was South Africa's chief trade negotiator in the AFCFTA and the tripartite FTA negotiations. During his tenure as chief negotiator, South Africa ratified both the AFCFTA and the tripartite FTA's agreements, providing new export markets in fast-growing and dynamic markets in East and West Africa. I mean, it sounds like a tongue twister. Prior to assuming the position, Mr. Wamkele was Director, International Trade Law and Investment Law at the Department of Trade and Industry, a role in which he was Principal Legal Counsel on the International Trade Law and International Investment Law. From 2010 through 2015, Wamkele represented South Africa at the World Trade Organization, WTO, in Geneva, Switzerland. During his posting to the WTO, Wamkele was elected by over 130 governments to the position of Chairman of the Committee of International Trade in Financial Services, a committee comprising trade negotiators, financial regulators, and financial policymakers from over 160 countries. Prior to joining the government, Wamkele worked for law firm Simpson, Thacher and Bartlett, LLP in London and Millbank, Tweed, Hadley and McCloy, LLP in Hong Kong. Wamkele has written and lectured internationally on international trade law, international investment law, and international business law. He holds a Bachelor's of Arts Law degree from Rhodes University in South Africa, a Master's of Arts in International Studies and Diplomacy with a specialization in International Economics from the School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, University of London, and an LLM, Masters of Laws in Banking Law and Financial Regulation from the Law Department of London School of Economics and Political Science, LSE. It's truly an honor to be in the presence of greatness, which is presented with humility. Your Excellency, many folks who have had an encounter with you allude to your humility. Please introduce us to what drives you and what inspired your journey to becoming the Secretary General of the AFCFTA Secretariat. Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much for inviting me for this conversation. I started in the private sector and of course made my transition to the public sector because I felt that there was a greater calling for public service, and that I thought that we needed at that time in South Africa. I thought we needed to all make a contribution to the country's economic development. And I didn't think that I could do that in my previous capacity in the private sector. So I joined the government, and I've been in public service now for close to 20 years, and it has been a very, very fulfilling journey. Where in terms of which I could see a direct impact in the contribution to South Africa's economic development. And then, of course, as I progressed in my career and within the department, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, focusing on Africa, there again, it was an honor to work with the brightest and the best Africans across the African continent in the area of economic development. And that is, I think, something that a lot of us underestimate. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Africans who are dedicated, who are committed to Africa's economic development, and you find them in every country. And so I think we're very fortunate that we have these talented Africans across the continent who have dedicated their lives and their careers to Africa's economic development. And the result of that commitment and that dedication is the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the biggest free trade area in the world, the most comprehensive free trade area in terms of sectoral coverage. It will cover investment, competition policy, trade in goods, trade in services. And we negotiated this agreement in less than 5 years, and it brings together the whole of Africa. And the objective is to significantly boost intra-Africa trade, to overcome smallness of national economies, to enhance our economies of scale in aggregate as Africa. And then, of course, it is to make sure that Africa is positioned as an investment destination for intra-Africa investors, and also for investors that are coming from outside of Africa. So it is a very exciting endeavor that we have been on. We have an agreement that has been ratified by 28 countries on the African continent. 54 countries out of 55 have signed the agreement. It is, I would suggest, since the end of colonialism in Africa, it is by far the most significant event to come out of Africa. And I think as Africans, we should be proud of this first step that we have taken to integration.
I mean, I find that phenomenal, very inspirational, and it's a call of action for us. I mean, I would just use this, it's in the context of Africa. In America, JFK said, don't ask what America has done for you. What can I do for America? So in the same token, we shouldn't ask what Africa can do for us. What can we do for Africa? Yes. How can we make sure we support this agreement success? Because once we are determined to make it work, I believe it will work.
Yes.
Then, you know, and so, I mean, for me, that's, as a diasporan African, for me, it was very key that we highlight it, we market it to the diaspora, since they also have impacts in their countries in one way or the other. And that's one of the reasons I thought it's very prudent for you to come and speak to us about what, I mean, as I said, the laser focused collaborations for Africa, the case for Africa, for diaspora support post COVID-19 economy. What would you say about that? Excellency.
The diaspora is very, very important to us in the African Union, but in particular to the African Continental Free Trade Area, in a number of ways. First, we want to establish through this agreement what we call regional value chains. We want to invest in manufacturing in Africa. We want to invite investors in productive sectors of the economies of African countries. And we want to bring in foreign direct investment into financial technology, for example. We want to bring in investment into infrastructure for financial services, to make sure that financial services is efficient, affordable, and accessible to millions and millions of Africans up and down the African continent. And this is already happening. We are already seeing positive results in East Africa and other regions of the African continent.
Fantastic.
And so these value chains that we want to establish, they will require investors. And I know that a lot of the diaspora has access to capital, has access to financiers. So we want to invite the diaspora to
I was
be
just
active.
about to say how.
Well, we want to invite the diaspora to be actively involved in productive investment in Africa, in mobilizing investment in manufacturing in Africa. I will give you an example. Apart from financial services, you take, for example, countries that are cotton producing, Benin, Mali, and so on.
Yes.
We should be mobilizing. We should be mobilizing investment for capital in these countries so that they are able to produce and process state-of-the-art and globally competitive textiles and clothing from the cotton that we know they are competitive in, the raw cotton. This is an example of how we can mobilize as the diaspora investment in productive sectors in Africa. Cotton is not the only one. I mentioned also financial services, trade finance. There are a range of areas in which we could work together, the diaspora and the African Continental Free Trade Area, to identify areas of investment. I know that there are many Africans in the diaspora who have this obligation, a sense of obligation to do something, but they don't know what they can do, and they don't know how they can channel that desire to make a contribution. And so we want to create that space and the dialogue for the diaspora to be part of this journey of implementing this free trade agreement. And I think that we've got to deal with specific areas. We are beyond the stage of talking about it. We now need
sound bites.
We now need to act, and we now need to create opportunities in Africa. And I'm not suggesting that all of us should move back to Africa. All I'm saying is that we need to put our minds together and look at how we can make the greatest impact in the shortest period of time. And I think that the way to do that is by investing in productive sectors in Africa, creating jobs for young Africans, and placing Africa in a state of readiness for investment and trade from outside investors and intra-Africa trade.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about that glitch. And I welcome back His Excellency, Mr. Wamkele Mene, on this resounding conversation. He is getting our minds thinking, because he's talking about being proactive and not reactive, how we can actively participate, and where we could possibly start from with regards to diaspora mobilization, with regard to the AFCFTA. Your Excellency, welcome back. We were still talking about the industries, and I was giving an example. I saw a Cameroonian designer who had a factory in Cameroon, and she has been featured all over the world. I mean, at the Smithsonian, Buckingham Palace. Her clothes have been worn by Lupita Nyong'o multiple times, Gayle King multiple times. Her name is Kibonen NY, and she's been on. She's been on a number, gotten many awards. She said, "Why can't fashion be a billion-dollar industry in Africa, just like Tory Burch?" You know, and that, for me, when you said manufacturing, for me, was very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, as I mentioned, examples of cotton-producing countries. There are other countries in Africa, like Ethiopia, that produce leather that can be processed into finished products that can be marketed. South Africa and Botswana, Namibia has a agro-processing industry, and so I think the question of that was put to you by the designer is absolutely correct. We have the raw materials. We have an intra-Africa market of 1.2 billion people, combined GDP of 2.5, 2.6 trillion US dollars. We have a young, vibrant population. We have a middle class that is growing exponentially, with the attendant increase in purchasing power. And so the market in Africa is there for ourselves as Africans. And my job and our job as the Secretariat is to make sure that we establish the regulatory conditions, the policy conditions, and that we open the markets, because after all, the main objective of this agreement is to break down trade barriers within Africa so that we increase the percentage of intra-Africa trade from the 18% where it stands today to 2030, so that it is over 50%. If you look at intra-Africa trade today, it is largely, for the most part, in primary products. And so we want to, the reason I keep mentioning industrial development, productive manufacturing, we want to stop being producers of primary products and exporters of primary products.
Look at our cocoa. We export it and then
precisely. We have to create for generations a context where we produce the cocoa, we process it, and we export chocolate.
Absolutely.
Same thing with textiles and clothing. Same thing with leather. Agro-processing has a very significant manufacturing component to it. And so your friend is absolutely correct. The market is here in Africa. I think our weakness has been that we have not been focused on a pan-African level. We have not been focused in terms of creating a market for ourselves. When you look at our trade and export profile data, we trade more with outside countries than we do amongst ourselves as African countries. We lack trade specialization, which is in part why the intra-Africa percentage of trade is so low, because we are still stuck in the colonial economic model. And this is something that one of the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Area is to ensure that Africa is released from this colonial economic model. And the only way we can do that is by fundamentally changing the structure of Africa's economy and placing an emphasis on industrial development on a massive scale, the establishment of regional value chains, the establishment of productive excellence, centers of productive excellence across the African continent. And this is not a pipe dream. This is something that has been done in other parts of the world. This is something that other free trade areas in other parts of the world have achieved. And so it's possible for us as Africa to model on their success and do even better. I will give you another example. I am at this moment engaged in conversations with some of the biggest automobile producers in the world, who are saying to me,
fantastic,
we want to enhance our investment in Africa. We want to shift our production of components from whatever part of the world they are in to Africa, because we see the potential in Africa. And so we as Africans have got to put in place the regulatory framework, the legislative framework, the policy framework at a pan-African level, so that these global auto manufacturing players can do that. They can shift these production structures of components to countries all over the African continent.
We have to make it attractive.
I'm sorry?
We have to make it attractive.
We have to make it attractive. A big corporation, a big multinational corporation in the auto sector has to see the investment value proposition for shifting their production structures because it costs billions and billions of dollars to do that. They may already have had investment projected down the line in whatever jurisdiction that they are in. So now we are enticing them to come and invest in Africa. And let me just say this, it is not only the big countries that can benefit from industrial development in Africa. Mm-hmm. In other words, it is not only Kenya, Morocco, Egypt, South Africa that are relatively industrialized. Okay. We can look at how we establish value chains so that even a country that today would appear as if it has nothing to export, but we have to find space for that country in the value chain. And again, there are models of this from around the world. What we require as Africans, as we implement this agreement, is to be disciplined and to be committed to ensuring that we implement Africa's industrial development strategies and implement Africa's industrial development policies. And the example I mentioned on agro-processing, on automobiles, these are examples of what concrete actions we are taking and what concrete actions we want to make sure that in 4 years' time, they yield results, which is jobs for millions and millions of Africans, economic development, opportunities for the informal sector, opportunities for women in trade. All of these things are of critical importance. We're not going to be able to do them if we don't move fast to implement this agreement, which foresees opening trade and investment opportunities in Africa.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, I thank you for giving us that insight and for letting us see why the case for it clearly. And what's the costs of failure if we don't support this?
The costs of failure are very high. I do not believe that Africa will have another opportunity. If we miss this opportunity, I think it will be a very, very long time before Africa is able to move fast and rapidly on integration, on market integration, on improving our trade and investment outlook. It will be a very, very long time. And I believe that future generations will judge us harshly if we do not act now and if we do not move rapidly to address Africa's economic development challenges. This is the opportunity to do that. And this African Continental Free Trade Area, in my view, is a good start, and it is a good demonstration of Africa's commitment. I should also say that that at the highest political level in Africa, the political commitment is there. All heads of states want to see an integrated market in Africa, an integrated investment market, Africa that has industrial capacity and is able to be globally competitive in terms of output and a contribution to global trade. If you look at Africa's combined contribution to global trade is 1%, a little over 1%. It is not significant. And you look at a single country, Singapore, whose contribution to global trade is to global trade and global output is close to 3%. It means we have, as Africa, we have quite a lot of work to do to address that deficit. But I'm very, very optimistic that we can do it. And I'm very optimistic that the political commitment and the political will to do it is there.
More power to you, and I'm so glad. I mean, I'm very happy about this. I must tell you, commend you for executing on a dream and making it become a reality. Our audience is largely diverse. It's global, largely diaspora. How can we, the diaspora, contribute to bringing this dream alive to life?
Well, as I said earlier, bring your euros, bring your dollars, come to invest in Africa. We are going to establish a dialogue with the private sector and, of course, individuals to identify investment opportunities, as I said earlier, in manufacturing, in financial services. We are going to work together with the private sector, with small, medium enterprises, and of course yourselves, Africans in the diaspora, to identify these investment opportunities in Africa. So we will rely, of course, on the global networks and the global and the access to global capital markets for channeling even enhanced flows of investment into Africa. So the diaspora is important for this linkage with global capital markets, with global expertise. It's very, very important that we leverage on the expertise of the diaspora. We've been in office for about 3 months, 3.5 months, but our aim is that by the end of this year, in fact, we were hoping that we would have established that dialogue by June, but COVID-19 unfortunately slowed us down. We are hoping that by the end of the year, we will establish a platform and a dialogue with the diaspora so that we can come up with a concrete action plan for how we can work together for Africa's development. And as I said earlier, we have the ideas collectively. All of us have the ideas. What we need to do is to act and to develop an action plan and to implement and execute the action plan for Africa's economic development and creation of jobs and opportunities for young Africans, for women in trade, for all segments of society that are very, very important.
For sparing time to come on Reset and highlighting the important things we need to know about the AFCFTA and making it compelling for why and how the world and the African diaspora especially should support you and the AFCFTA. I mean, I look forward to a continued discussion, and I look forward to the panel that's going to come after, continuing to make a case for this, why this agreement must be executed. I mean, we have Claire Kamanzi, CEO of Rwanda Development Board. We have Bohani Bungwane, Global Head of Sales, ABSA, Sales and Trade and Working Capital, ABSA Group. And then we have Dr. Joy Kategweka, who's a senior advisor at the UNDP, and also who's a global trade expert, who's going to continue with the case for this AFCFTA. I mean, it's been an honor to have you, and we want to make sure we help you help Africa, because our future is in our hands.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much. And again, thank you for inviting me. It has been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And as I said earlier, we are committed to working with the African diaspora, and we will create and establish the platforms for that conversation to happen, a conversation which has to lead to results. It's very important that we yield results. So thank you again very much, and I look forward to having another conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to listen to His Excellency Wamkele Mene, the Secretary General of the AFCFTA Secretariat today. And I look forward to having you on our next panel, which starts at 12:50 EST. I mean, it's been an honor, and continue to follow us on Afrique Today Reset, and follow me, Busi Matsiko Andan, on Facebook, as well as Busi Matsiko on LinkedIn and Busi Matsiko Andan on Instagram. Let's continue having all these amazing discussions on Reset. And thank you for tuning in to Afrique Today, the #1 digital channel out of Washington, D.C. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.